8 signs of a bad serpentine belt, and what happens if it fails. Most drivers don't think about the serpentine belt because it's quiet, hidden, and usually out of sight. But this one belt is responsible for running some of the most important systems in your car. It powers the alternator, the power steering pump, the water pump in many vehicles, and sometimes even the air conditioning compressor. So when the serpentine belt starts to wear out, the effects don't stay small for long. At first, you may hear a noise or notice something slightly off. But if the belt fails completely, multiple systems can stop working at once, and that can leave you stranded very quickly. In this video, I'll show you 8 clear signs of a bad serpentine belt. And, more importantly, what actually happens if that belt fails while driving. Let's go step by step. Sign number 1. Squealing noise from the engine. This is usually the first sign. When you start the car, you may hear a high-pitched squealing sound, especially in the morning, or when the engine is cold. That noise often comes from the belt slipping. Instead of gripping the pulleys properly, it slides slightly, and that creates the squeal. Now, here's something important. A brief squeal on startup may not always mean the belt is bad, but if the noise continues, gets louder, or happens more frequently, that's when it becomes a warning sign, especially during acceleration or when you turn on accessories like AC, because that increases load on the belt, and a worn belt struggles under load. Sign number 2, cracks or visible wear on the belt. This is one of the easiest things to check. If you look at the serpentine belt, you may see cracks, fraying, glazing, or missing chunks. A healthy belt should look smooth and flexible, not dry, not brittle, and not damaged. Over time, heat and friction break down the rubber, and once cracks start appearing, the belt is already wearing out. This is why visual inspection is important, because sometimes the belt gives you a clear warning before it fails completely. Sign number 3, loss of power steering. This is one of the most noticeable symptoms. The serpentine belt drives the power steering pump, so if the belt slips or fails, power steering can stop working. You may suddenly notice that the steering wheel becomes heavy, much harder to turn, especially at low speeds. This can feel very alarming, especially if it happens while driving, because the car suddenly feels harder to control. This is one of the clearest signs that the belt is no longer functioning properly. Sign number 4, battery warning light. This is where things get confusing, because the serpentine belt also drives the alternator, and the alternator charges the battery. So if the belt slips or breaks, the alternator stops working. And when the alternator stops charging, the battery light turns on. Many drivers think this means a battery problem, but sometimes the real issue is the belt, because without the belt, the alternator simply cannot generate power. Sign number 5, engine overheating. In many vehicles, the water pump is driven by the serpentine belt. So if the belt fails, coolant stops circulating, and when coolant stops moving, engine temperature rises quickly. You may see the temperature gauge climbing, warning lights, or even steam. This is a serious situation because overheating can damage the engine fast, and if it's caused by a broken belt, the problem can escalate very quickly. Sign number 6, air conditioning stops working. The serpentine belt also drives the AC compressor, so if the belt slips or breaks, the AC system may stop working. You may notice warm air instead of cold, or the AC suddenly turning off. Now, this alone may not seem serious, but when combined with other signs, it becomes part of a bigger picture, because multiple systems depend on the same belt. Sign number 7, chirping or ticking noise. This is different from a squeal. A worn or misaligned belt can create a rhythmic chirping sound, almost like a ticking noise. This often happens when the belt is misaligned, a pulley is worn, or the belt surface is uneven. This type of sound usually increases with engine speed, and it's often a sign that something is not running smoothly. It may not be the belt alone, but the belt system as a whole. Sign number 8, complete belt failure. This is the final stage. The belt breaks, and when it breaks, everything it drives stops instantly. That means no alternator charging, no power steering, no AC, and possibly no coolant circulation. The car may still run briefly, but not for long, because the battery will drain. And if the water pump is affected, the engine will overheat. This is why a broken serpentine belt can leave you stranded very quickly. Now, here is something very important. What happens if the serpentine belt fails while driving? First, you may notice the battery light. Then, the steering becomes heavy. Then, systems like AC stop working. And if the engine depends on the belt for coolant flow, temperature will start rising. At that point, you need to act quickly because continuing to drive can cause serious engine damage. So what should you check first? Start with a visual inspection. Look at the belt. Check for cracks, damage, or looseness. Listen for unusual noises. Pay attention to warning lights. And if multiple systems start failing at once, the serpentine belt becomes a major suspect because it connects all those systems together. So let's quickly recap. A bad serpentine belt may show signs like squealing noise, visible cracks, loss of power steering, battery warning light, engine overheating, AC failure, chirping noise, or complete failure. Some of these signs are small, some are serious, but all of them are warnings. Because once the belt fails, multiple systems fail with it, and that can leave you stranded quickly. And now I want to hear from you. What was the first sign you noticed? Was it noise, loss of steering, or a warning light? Comment below with your experience. And if enough people mention the same issue, I'll make the next video on that exact problem.